Hello, my name is Lee Presser. This is my show. I speak frequently to very interesting people. Some of these conversations are so exciting, so intellectually stimulating, I thought others might like to listen in. This is the reason we started recording Conversation with Lee Presser.
Welcome to Conversation with Lee Presser. For 13 years, the Illinois Business Journal has been the foremost business publication in Southwestern Illinois. The IBJ is a monthly publication which provides news and in-depth look at issues of interest and concern to the business community of Southwestern Illinois. It examines news stories and provides information and insights that the Missouri media does not. Our guest today is Dennis Grubaugh, the editor and a partner in the business. Prior to joining the Illinois Business Journal, Mr. Grubaugh had been with the Telegraph newspaper for 22 years, winning numerous awards for both his writing and reporting. During his final 13 years, he was city editor. Dwindling resources at the Telegraph prompted Mr. Grubaugh to seek a new direction in his career. Dennis Grubaugh, welcome to Conversation.
Thank you, Lee.
So, you've been with the IBJ now since when?
September this past year. I came
2013.
aboard, came aboard as editor as part of a transitional thing. After having negotiated to get that slot for about 4 months with the primary partner, Al Artballs, who is, he's now the president and publisher, and as of the first of the year, I'm editor and a partner in the operation.
Mm-hmm. What interested you about this particular magazine?
It had a very good, reputable history going in. I was familiar with the whole setup. Carrie Smith had founded it. Carrie was a former Telegraph reporter who left our operation to start her own business publication, and she'd done tremendously well with it, which anybody who knows business, when somebody starts a new business, there's a transitional period, and sometimes things are shaky, but she had it off to a solid start and kept it that way. She brought Al on a few years into it, and the two of them have just done a great job in the financial end of it. Carrie wanted to go a different direction in her career. That opened up a slot for me, and I'm glad to have done it.
So she's gone and you're in.
Yes, exactly right. She's got her own new business now. It's like a business research. It's called Information Works. She's still around the area, and she's been a great mentor to me in the first few months.
Mm-hmm. So tell us about what does the business, I mean, in the introduction, I'm going like, okay, you talk about business issues.
Monthly publication. It exists basically on advertiser support. We've got a good, loyal base of advertisers, all of them from around this market. We do stories in depth on various issues of business concern. And this month I did something on the concealed carry law and how a lot of employers are worried about that. Recently I did something on video gambling, how it's starting to rival the casinos themselves for numbers.
You're talking about these little parlors.
Correct, right.
What is the story with that? I mean, that's allowed in Illinois?
Mm-hmm. It is, as of, it's about 13, 14 months now in. And now the number of gaming units in those video parlors exceeds the gaming units in the 9 or 10 casinos in the state.
Now, are you familiar with Fairmont Track and their desires?
Mm-hmm.
Just talk a little bit about that, because that's the same thing, gaming. And
they believe that being able to access the same type of gaming privilege will keep them afloat longer. It looks like they're going to exist for this season based on the financing they've got in place now. But, you know, the future years are what really concern them, and they need something long-term to depend on.
I seem to recall in January 2014 that there was discussions about there was some piece of legislation that Illinois needed to pass or did pass. I can't even remember how it was going, but they were saying like, well, if we get this passed, then we're going to do, I forget, 50-some track dates, but if we don't, we're only doing 10. What's the story with that?
That's still a work in progress. There's been various proposals. None have gone far enough to really get things ironed out. It'll be coming up again in the next session, I'm sure.
From your perspective, is the gambling business, I mean, is that a big business for Metro East?
It has sustained East St. Louis. It has helped the city of Alton. I can speak to those two very well. I'm certain it's done just as well in the other communities in Illinois, but these two particular communities would have been hard hit were it not for some of the gaming revenue that's come in. The Alton Bell started in 1991, and they were able to tap their casino fund in the city to help build their police and fire departments.
And road improvements too, as I recall.
You know, it's gone to a lot of different things, and it has been a godsend in a lot of ways. You know, you say what you want about gaming industry, but it's helped these communities in the way that I believe it was intended to help, and it's certainly regulated.
Mm-hmm. Now, again, from a business point of view, places like Alton, Granite City, areas, you know, East St. Louis and south of there, these all used to be heavy industrial areas, but over our lifetime, that's kind of gone away.
They've evolved into lighter manufacturing. They've evolved into more service-oriented. Sometimes they've evolved into, you know, into pretty poor situations. They're kind of reinventing themselves. Alton, for instance, took a lot of old industrial land and has created new light manufacturing, warehousing, that sort of things in places. Wood River's done some of the same things, trying to do more. They're finding new ways and thinking outside of the box, which is what they're going to have to do in this new century of thinking.
Mm-hmm. Now, is this the kind of thing that you're writing about?
We write about those kinds of things. This month I'm going to be writing a lot about the topic of immigration. It just turns out I attended a session sponsored by the Leadership Council. And there's this movement works on both sides of the river to make the public aware of how these immigration reforms need to be made, and while they're being made, to make our area more appealing to immigrants themselves. We're talking legal immigrants, but if they somehow bring illegal immigrants into the fold during the next couple of years, we want to be ready for whatever happens. There's a lot of businesses that depend on that type of input, and we're not just talking about migrant workers out in the fields. We're also talking about STEM, science, technology, math skills. Those are going to be in short supply, and a lot of those are people who are foreign born coming here to study and hopefully to stay and to contribute to the welfare of the community. Monsanto is getting ready to hire something like hundreds over in the St. Louis County area, and some of those people are going to have to be from that resource.
Mm-hmm. I know that SIU School of Engineering has quite a number of people who are foreign nationals that study there, and I gather they're the kind of people that you're talking about wanting to keep in the area.
A great deal of that is exactly that, yes. But you've got all the colleges in this market, and they all have the same sort of interest from foreign-born students coming here. A lot of them end up leaving the market, which is, you know, it's not doing us a lot of good to educate them and then send them away.
Right, and I never could understand why they would make it, they being the federal government and the with their immigration policies, would make it so difficult for trained technicians and educated engineers to have to beg to get a visa to stay in the United States, get a green card.
That's part of this whole issue that's before Congress right now and may not even get resolved this year. There's this whole idea of amnesty that seems to be the nasty word in Congress right now, and 11 million undocumented aliens, and what do you do with them? Obviously there are a lot of people who depend on those skills. They depend on the money those individuals are spending in this country. They may be here under the wrong pretense, but they're still contributing a large degree to jobs and to the marketplace. And we can't necessarily send them back to wherever they came from without running the risk of losing that resource.
Mm-hmm. And this is some of the stuff that the Leadership Council was talking about?
Leadership Council's taken a very active role in trying to make the public aware of the importance of immigration, the importance of reform. That's one of many issues. They've dealt with virtually every topic you can think of that is of a greater regional good. Transportation, the river as a source of the economy, the intermodal operations. It's a great agency made up of all of, well, not all of, but a lot of the heads of businesses throughout Metro East.
I saw you had an article about what Ameren, Illinois was doing in terms of renewing some of its infrastructure. Talk a little bit about that.
They're putting many millions of dollars into their smart grid program here in Metro East. They're spending a vastly larger amount of money statewide. But at some point in time, they want to have us all hooked up to the kind of a grid where we use things more efficiently, we pay for them more effectively, and there'll be less waste. And it's a complex type of a program, but the fact that a lot of the training is going on in Metro East for these people who will do a lot of the installation, a lot of the repair, it's significant. It's significant that it's happening here. There's a big training center in Belleville that they've started. Those are the sorts of things we like to look at.
Have you heard from any of the conspiracy people who are talking about the smart grid as a method of controlling society and being able to turn off
Not personally.
your electricity?
No,
yeah,
not personally.
well, good, because I've had some of those people here before, and they want to. They're really for sure that that this is all just a big conspiracy.
Conspiracies are sometimes based on ignorance of fact.
Yeah, yeah. Well, there's a lot of that going around. So, what other items have you worked on, or are you going to be working on of consequence to Metro East?
There's a lot of things going on with. I mentioned the intermodal thing.
Yes.
Alton is establishing a new train hub. That's going to be of wide interest.
What kind of a train?
Well,
what are they hubbing?
The old Wadlow Golf Course in Alton is being converted to a new Amtrak station. They'll also have bus services and things. It's going to be like a centralized hub where multiple varieties of passengers can come in and disperse.
Is this where the high-speed rail is supposed to come to?
I believe so. Yeah, it's in. I believe some of the contracts have been let for the early stages of it, so you'll be seeing significant progress on that in the coming year.
Yeah, I've got a guy that I'm scheduling to come here who is one of the consultants that's helping to organize the purchase of the hardware to build that system. Mm-hmm. The actual trains themselves, the locomotives. Apparently, it's a really big deal.
Mm-hmm. And there are a lot of people who worry about whether or not the high-speed rail issue is safe or is a good investment. A lot of businesses will tell you that it is a good investment, and that it's just yet another service that makes our region a better place to live and prosper. Those are the kinds of things we like to get into, the give and take for those issues.
Well, back in the 1950s, there were those that thought that the building an interstate highway system was a waste of time and money too.
This is correct.
And time has proved them mistaken.
And the wear and tear on the pavement has proven the use.
Yeah, and well, that's another issue right there. Is paying for infrastructure. Have you been doing much on that? Especially, I know that IDOT. They have reduced funding sources, as does MoDOT. Have you been doing anything on that?
Well, we've done. Our newspaper has done a lot through the years. I haven't done as much in just the first few months. I plan to do more, but we have this whole system of bridges and highways and infrastructure that is in desperate need of being replaced because it's either inefficient, not big enough, unsafe, and those have to be addressed sooner or later, because the longer they go, the more expensive it is to fix them. Look at what happened with the Stan Musial Veterans Memorial Bridge this past weekend. It's open, and now it's getting a great use. I dare say that that was a project that was in the works for far too long before it was.
I can speak to this one. 1991, believe it or not, I went up to the IDOT headquarters in Collinsville and met with a guy there by the name of Dale Clore.
Dale Clore, I remember, District 8 engineer.
He's actually, I believe, the one who invented the idea of the Mississippi River Bridge. And
I think he had some vital input in it.
Yeah, he's gotten no credit. I saw all those, the two governors and the congressmen and all these other people standing up there, but Dale's an old guy now, but he should be getting a little more credit than he is.
There's virtually nobody in place in public office at this point, and Jerry Costello would have been the last designee.
I saw him up there.
With the exception perhaps of Dick Durbin, who had a very direct impact on getting that bridge into place. Those types of individuals deserve a lot of credit for what they did.
Yeah, fighting their way through. And it's unfortunate that it wound up having to be cut down at the last second. Originally supposed to be an 8-lane stretch, but they did design it.
They designed it for some way to be added to.
Yes, they can do that. And they believe it or not, they're actually going to widen the Poplar Street Bridge.
Poplar Street Bridge is going to be the subject of about 2 years or more worth of work, I believe, when you consider some of the ramps and the extra projects that go into restoring that bridge, which has just deteriorated something terrible.
I find it amazing. They're actually going to slide the deck over and add lane. I mean, what? You're going to slide the
You have to talk to a structural engineer to get the detail on that one.
That's pretty crazy. But yeah, there's a lot of. I mean, you and I both remember, Illinois, Southwestern Illinois went through a really, really difficult time after, like in the late 70s, and then again somewhere there in the 80s, and then finally since about the mid 90s, things have been kind of going pretty well till to the big crash in 08.
Yeah, aside from the recession years, the last couple of decades has been a lot more organized. There's been what I see as a real public service-oriented system of leadership on both sides. You've got the politics, but there seems to be a realization that the more things that are done between communities and among communities and across the river, where if they're linking up, they can get some serious projects done. This bridge was a wonderful example of that. There are a lot more things that need to be done in this market to make it an appealing market for business to locate in. They need to concentrate on easing tax regulation, business regulation, things that will put them on more sound footing when you compare them to neighboring states.
It's too bad that this region straddles 2 states. It just makes it much more complicated to get economic things accomplished.
That is true to a degree, but it's also one of its greatest strengths if you stop and think about it. I mean, most of the people who live here will tell you that they love the proximity to the large metropolitan area, but they also like the relative solitude of Southwestern Illinois as compared to West County, St. Louis, that sort of thing. And the longer we go, the more we're going to become the destination of choice.
Yeah, Edwardsville. Didn't you do an article on Edwardsville as a restaurant destination?
How to become a dining destination is very true. I talked to a lot of people for this, and by and large, where Fairview Heights was 20 years ago, and people in other communities were going there for dining, now a lot of people are coming to Edwardsville. They're coming from Alton, Wood River, Bethalto. They're coming from parts of St. Louis across the river. It's interesting to see how things have sort of shifted around.
I want to switch subjects now for a little while to talk about the Alton Telegraph, which was 22 years out of your life.
Right.
You started there with as just a beat reporter? And
Actually, I came up through the Suburban Journal chain. The Journal's acquired the Telegraph in the mid-'80s. I eventually went over to the Telegraph, worked their desk, both the city desk and the copy desk at different times. Eventually, I went over to become the bureau chief at the county courthouse, and where I covered a lot of criminal cases and that sort of thing. After about 3 or 4 years, then I went over to Alton to resume my task there as a city editor full-time, and stayed there until 2013.
what is a city editor?
Basically, the guy who's in charge of all the reporting, assigns the stories, coordinates among the reporters, the photographers, isn't as concerned with things like budgets and new hires and paperwork, just consumed with the whole idea of daily developments. Every day is different, and it's much like a sergeant on the beat sort of directing his patrolmen to wherever they need to go.
Mm-hmm. How is a city editor different than editor?
Editor is more of the operational side, more of the hiring, the firing, the policy administration, the implementation, basically the guy who designs the policy that everybody else is expected to follow. And I had held roles like that previously, but I've always been sort of journalist at heart, and city editor was much more my gig. The only reason I even left the Telegraph at the time that I did was all the cuts that had come down. We had ownership change, and it was just not as newsroom friendly as what it used to be. Because face it, when you need a certain number of bodies out there to cover what you need to get done, and you don't have them, it's very disheartening because you see what needs to get done, you're not doing it. So that was some of the mentality I considered as I left the operation, to go do something that was more of my own choosing. Since that time, they have turned some things around at the Telegraph, but at the same time, there's some new competition in the area. There's an alternative weekly that started up in Alton. So it's going to be an interesting few years ahead to watch how the whole media market shapes up.
Who was the owner?
The owner was Freedom Communications, which its flagship paper was the Orange County Register. It went through a bankruptcy about 3 or 4 years ago. As part of the bankruptcy, it sold off piecemeal its various holdings. Investment bankers bought the piece that involved the Telegraph and some others, and that really was quite telling in the end, when they were concentrating way too much on money and not nearly enough on talent.
And I guess they forgot that you actually have to put something in the paper for people to want to buy it.
Yeah, I can talk all day long about the Telegraph, and I'm kind of trying to look forward.
Right. Yeah. Well, do newspapers have a perspective? Some people think that the newspapers have a perspective. They have
Republican versus Democrat,
or
right wing versus left.
Like that, yes, or some other perspective. But I mean, let's face it. You've got newspapers that have the name Democrat in them or Republican.
So much of that is historical in nature. Some of them were formed initially to reflect a Democratic, Republican, independent viewpoint. Things have changed through the years where new owners have taken over, but those names stay the same. That's part of the historical integrity of newspapers in general. I will say that through the years, I've been accused of being both a Republican and a Democrat in the same day, which has always been appealing to me, because that means to me that I'm doing something right.
Somewhere there in the middle.
Right.
Yeah.
Newspapers are often accused of having an agenda. Sometimes on the editorial page you can see that. Larger newspapers probably more so than smaller. But I wrote a lot of editorials through the years, and I can tell you that my focus was always personal responsibility, which is neither Republican or Democratic, smart economics, which is hopefully both parties, and common sense, which
Neither party.
sometimes eludes everybody.
Yeah. So the only reason I bring that up is, you know, you're an old newspaper man, and there are a lot of people that really do think that newspapers, one of the reasons that they're going downhill is because they slant too far off to one side or the other, and so you lose a whole other group of people.
I think the reason newspapers have gone downhill more than anything is the easy nature of competition. We've had so much come by way of the web, where you've got even one man can be his own blog, which can also compete for some of that revenue that you're out there to get. And the more people who are after that pie, the smaller the pieces they're each getting.
Mm-hmm. Here in the last 3 minutes, and then we got to go, is there anything we haven't covered that you wanted to talk about?
I think that there is room for all of these various media that we're talking about. Ours is a monthly publication, but we're...
Is it a hard, you do a hard?
Absolutely. We
so
do
you're not just online?
24, 32 pages a month, but we are going to move a direction where we're doing more online, more with social media. That's something I've brought to the table, so we can keep sort of an active voice between those print issues. There's a lot of things that happen throughout a given month in Southwestern Illinois that are of legitimate interest to the business community, virtually anything that happens in the legislature. And we want to try to put that in people's laps between the print sides. As when each print edition comes up, then we'll have something new and different that they can read through, and in between we'll give them what we can.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, good idea, because you're right. Whenever a book is published, I hear this all the time from teachers. Well, you know, that's why we're going online, because, you know, the moment they put a textbook out, it's old right there and there. So I can see where you would want to keep the business community informed.
Absolutely.
Are you going to have you know, stringers or something up in Springfield in order to keep you informed on business issues, or is that your job?
We have some correspondence, but it's by and large my job to bring everything together. So as much as I can recruit resources here and there, I will.
Mm-hmm. Well, it is, luckily, in this day and age, easier to get at those resources than it used to be when you first started in the business.
Yes, it is.
Well, that's, I guess that just about covers it. Any last 2 sentences that you wanted to say? I've
been a newspaper reporter or editor now in Illinois for 35 years. When I first started, we were on old typewriters, and eventually we went to the computer disk, the floppy disk. We've moved along into cold type, and then all of a sudden we're into the cyberspace, and it's never been more of an opportunity to be a newspaper than now.
Gotta go. Thank you very much for being with us.
Thank you.
I've been speaking with Dennis Grubaugh with the Illinois Business Journal, formerly of the Alton Telegraph. For those of you who would like to see this again, go to YouTube. This is going to be uploaded there, and show your friends. Thank you. See you next time.